Hi there, it's Michelle here. If you're watching, please let me know if you can hear me and see me. So I am here on the Parent to Parent place. I'm just waiting for Vera to come join, but I thought we'd get started while we wait for her to join the little studio setup, which is how we're making this video call. So today we're going to be talking about labels. I'm just going to hang on a minute and see if Vera or anyone else is joining. And I'm just going to check that we're going live on the page. Yeah, so we should be live. As I said, please let me know if you can see and hear. At the moment, it's still just me. I'm just going to check back. Yeah, we're still waiting for Vera. So yeah, about labeling your children. So this is not the kind of labels like labeling their uniform. That is what I thought when I first heard this term. So when Vera comes here, I'll let her explain a bit more about what we actually mean. So Vera's just coming now. Let me add her in. Vera!
Hello, hello.
You can hear me, yeah?
I can hear you. Can you hear
Oh,
me?
I can, yes. And I can see you too.
Oh, amazing. So you're not feeling well, right?
I'm not feeling that well. We're live, by the way. I
Okay.
started us. Yeah, I'm not feeling that well today. I think
Oh,
it's a back to school cough and cold. And I also did a little camping trip over the weekend with the children and James.
nice.
So it was nice. It was tricky. It was out in the cold. More cold than we expected. So yeah, I think we're all struggling a bit today, but yeah, back to school and that went okay. So yeah, how about
Amazing.
you? How are you
Okay.
doing?
Good, good. It was nice to have an extra day. I think I already needed after a week of school. I needed a break, so it
Oh
was
yeah.
good. It was
Yeah,
really
we really needed that day yesterday. We basically slept a bit after the trip away, so it was
I
good.
bet. Yes, no, it's good. And I think it's also good for the children because my son came over for the weekend, and yesterday we were like, can we just stay in bed a little longer? It was just really nice, and they
Yeah,
were like each in their space, and it was just really nice.
yeah.
Yes. Anyway, I was looking forward to tonight's session because it's all about labels.
Yeah, yeah. I just all I've said so far is that it's not the kind of labeling like labeling uniforms because
It can
that's
be like
what I thought
that.
you
It
meant
can
when
turn
you first
into
said it. But
that.
it's yeah, yeah. It makes there's some similarities, aren't there? So
Yes, using labels too much, it can become like that, like labeling uniforms forever for good.
so can I get you to explain what it actually means, this term, because it's not completely clear.
Yes. So the reason why I like labels is because, of talking about labels, is because learning about them and what it meant for me and my children. There were so many things that I used to be insecure about, that I used to, that to a point that used to prevent me from doing better and well at school, in my life in general. These things were based on the fact that I had learned to believe that I was, for example, noisy, loud, clumsy, good for nothing, um, shy, good girls. All these little things that I learned that I was hearing as a child. At the end of the day, as an adult, they were not just as an adult, but as I was growing, they were defining my personality and a lot of my behaviors and the traits that I had. And some of them are good, but a lot of them are not. And some of them are helpful, but a lot of them are not. And they do have a detrimental impact on how we um, excel as adults or not. So
Yeah.
that is why I'm so passionate about this actual topic, because I became a mother young, so I was saying what I heard onto my child. So I was using what I was used to onto my son.
Yeah.
Like, be a good boy, sit down, be
Yeah.
quiet.
So the
All
words basically that people describe us as,
yeah,
and then they become part of who we are, aren't they? That's
yeah.
kind of
That's
yeah.
how we relate to others. That's how we interpret the world. That is how we function, and that is the part that is most detrimental, is the way we function. Because although you might want to be helpful, or you might want to do well on a test, for example, the fact that you have to be very a good girl, or very pretty or very clever, all of that tension and pressure that you put on yourself, consciously and unconsciously, because consciously you'll be thinking that you have to please your parents, for example, an example of a child. um, the other part of it is that you put pressure on yourself because you're stressed about failing. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
this.
this is what I am. So if I'm not clever, if I get this wrong, who am I,
Yeah,
basically?
yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of those things can really, the result of that can really be quite detrimental, because sometimes we stop from trying. Yes.
Yeah.
We fail, and but we might fail not because we are necessarily failing, but it's that sort of setting on the mind that, oh, I don't try harder, I give up. Giving up. Actually, what I'm trying to say is that we end up giving up, and that is
Yeah.
hard. I'm sure, I don't know, I have experienced that a lot. I was very capable, but all of the labels, all of the words that I use, I was like a puppet to these words, if that
Yeah.
makes any sense. So that's the best way I can explain it.
Yeah.
And the other part that hurts a lot, certainly from the point of view as a mother, is that you lose the person in front of you. In this case, you lose your child. You stop seeing your child for who they are, and we start to relate to them as loud, needy, um, shy, quiet, pretty girl, sweet angel, all these things. And we stop seeing that our children are more than that.
And I think other people do as well, which is another scary thing, isn't it? We tell someone that our child is needy or something, and then people point out, oh, they are being needy. And then it might be a time when,
Reinforces.
yeah, yeah, and then it makes you start to think, oh, actually, yes, they are. And yeah, you feel like you're stuck with it, but actually, it's just you're missing the other bits of the personality, or you're missing something that they're trying to tell you about, and it's just yeah, your focus is on this characteristic that you've got used to, and you're just this is your expectation of how they are.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah,
sometimes we even try hard to be that person. I
yeah,
remember my greatest labels, for example, if we talk about, you and I share our labels and perhaps think about what these labels
yeah,
did
got
to
some.
us. For me, it was stubborn, um, uh, I've forgotten all of them, but the one that still stays with me, because this is still a problem, is the stubborn, my way or the hard way. And even if I
Yeah,
have to suffer around it, I don't care, I will do it. But because I was hearing that that was who I was, I actually became so proud about it and worked so hard to be it. And
yeah,
although some days I didn't want to be that, and just because I had to put up straight face to people, because this is how they knew me, so
yeah,
I couldn't, and I still, as I said, it still is something that I still work on a daily basis, because it's hard to ask for help. For example, it's not
yeah,
something that I will easily do, and I know it is because, oh, you're stubborn, you know it all, you can do
yeah,
it all. And it's a very hard thing to have, because some days, maybe today I'm okay to manage the day, but maybe tomorrow I won't. Yeah, but
yeah.
when you
And
are
maybe every time
hearing,
you got pushed into that box or something from that expectation. So yeah,
yes, So it is an interesting thing, although it's a good quality, because in many other things he has helped me manage many challenging circumstances. So nurturing that part has been good, but
Yeah.
over nurturing has actually put me into disadvantage in many things, in many other things. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you?
I made some labels. Would you like to see my labels? I'm hoping that they don't turn into sort of mirror writing on the screen, but we're going to see. You tell me if
Yeah, yeah,
there.
yeah. It's okay. Yeah, but
So
yeah,
that was my big one. One of my big ones growing up. I was always the polite person. So
mhm,
I was always good when I was polite. And my a lot of my childhood was remembering that to be polite and to be good, I need to say please all the time, say thank you all the time. I would quite often be so focused on that I would forget anything else I was going to say. I would forget what I thought about things. I would just be trying so hard, sort of like to say the things that I thought people wanted me to hear, especially
yeah,
adults. I was trying so hard to sort of fit into that box of being good and being polite and like everyone being sort of proud of me that I didn't actually think about things I wanted to do. If I didn't want to do something, I was just trying to be polite anyway. If I maybe wanted more of something, I wouldn't say because I thought it's not polite. And that also goes with my other one, which was the main one that I had, which if you can see it,
shy and quiet. Yeah,
I
yeah,
made a little smiley face with it.
yeah,
It's basically I always had it sort of associated with me that like I was shy and I was quiet
yeah,
and that these were good things. So I think sort of if I was ever quite loud or something, it was sort of too much and I needed to kind of stop. So if I was really excited, it just kind of became my personality. So I never really thought about, um, I don't know if I was confident. I knew that I was shy. So that was like the opposite of confident. So I never really thought to put my hand up or answer something or I don't know, go and talk to somebody because I just thought that's not what being good is. And I want
yeah,
to be good. So I'm going to sit there quietly. I'm not going to say anything. My thoughts are, no one wants to hear my thoughts.
yeah,
Listen to the adults. And in some ways that's good. But then in other ways, there were bits of me, I think, that kind of didn't develop
yeah.
as well as they might have done. So yeah, I was thinking about that today because my daughter just went and started a new drama club today, and she was in one already. She was quite sort of quiet and things, but from going to this, it made her more confident. And I think part of it was just that before she wasn't sure if it was sort of safe to kind of say things and do things and just like I don't know, be whatever she wanted to be. And then like the sort of change of environment, not being in a classroom or something, made her sort of able to just kind of explore and run around and be louder and not be told you need to be quiet, you need to listen.
Yeah.
And today she went to a new one and she didn't know anyone there. And she walked into the room and she just joined in, spoke to people, and it went really well. And it was really nice. And she was one of the younger ones in the group as well. It was age 7 to 12, and she's just turned 7. And she went there and in the past, if she was going to something like that, she'd say, I can't go. I won't know anybody. She'd say, I'm too shy. I won't have any friends. And she went in and she just didn't even think like that. And she just came out and just said, I just had a really good time. And it was
Mm,
just nice because there wasn't any sort of expectation that she seemed to have that she had to be a certain way.
yeah,
So it wasn't going to be wrong if she was quiet. It wasn't going to be wrong if she was noisy or excited.
yeah.
And so I thought that was quite nice, and it reminded me of my labels just before this
Amazing.
call. And
Yes.
now, yeah, I would have found that harder. And because I think of trying to fit into this like box of what sort of being good was, because that was always a big thing for me is like trying to be good.
Mm, mm. And at the end
Yeah.
of the day, our children, we have role model all of these to our children. We are role modeling these to our children. And I don't know, maybe you sat with us in the course and we talk about labels a while back. I don't know if
Yeah.
that has helped and changed and how you do things now with your children, because that would have shifted. As you said, I try so hard to box my child, my eldest, to label him and put him in a box where you have to fit and you have to be able to um, yeah, flexible or be liked. But it doesn't necessarily have to be like that. Of course, these qualities, of course, being polite is important. Of course, being quiet is necessary from time to time.
Yeah.
But if you're going to be that all the time, then you're going to be. We put ourselves or we put our children into disadvantages. Just like you said, I didn't explore this. I didn't develop that. Maybe I could have. And so this is why I am so passionate about these. I mean, I love all of the different topics and strategies that we talk about in the
Yeah.
course, but this one was a really, it was a breakthrough for my own confidence as a parent, and in how I began to relate to my child, because I remember getting all sorts of feedbacks from school, friends, everywhere. Everywhere I went, I felt like my child was loud. So I was relating to him like that without me knowing. I thought it was a good thing. I had not heard before the concept of this, of relating to our children with labels or through labels. And then people would say, oh, your child is quite loud, quite strong, quite this. So the expectations went up, 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 up. And then I was living up to the expectations. I was trying to work to live up to the expectations of everybody around me. And one thing I remember realizing from working through my own labels as a mum, and then as my for myself, and then as a mum, it really got me to discover my child.
Like your inner child, or
No, my own child, my
oh,
child.
okay, I see.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
working through the labels helped me a lot to know what I actually did like, what I dislike, so many things, and develop my confidence with it. But then with when it came to my own child, my son, it was really beautiful, because when I stopped and realized and worked through the labels and literally unpick the labels, I began
yeah,
to see a different child, a very capable child. So he was capable to not be so loud and strong and all these things that we were putting onto him, starting with
yeah.
me and the people around me. And I began to discover this child that had other beautiful qualities that I was missing, and I wasn't nurturing these qualities. So that was
Yeah, no,
a
that's really interesting. Yeah, there's sort of characteristics that come from them where it's not that it's come from us. So not something that we've, well, I guess almost like a name, or like when you name a child kind of thing, you put that name for them and that's their name.
that's
And
it.
I guess in your head you have some expectation, or you might want them to do a music lesson or something, play an instrument. You've got these expectations of what you might want for them. But
Yeah,
actually, if you take all that away and you see underneath like what they actually have,
yeah.
yeah, yeah,
So it was, this was like the gift of this moment when I actually sat and reflected on my own labels, on the labels that I was putting my child on. I began to slow down and look at that and look at them and take them off and do that, because he was diagnosed with attention deficiency, and we had quite a few complicated issues in primary, in reception to all the way to year 4, because that was when I took charge. I was like, enough. And it was really nice to actually see my child. It was this moment of,
yeah.
wow. I
Yeah,
was
I guess
just,
SEN labeling as well would be another whole thing, wouldn't it? Where there's all this external like labels and
yeah.
put your child in a box.
And then the other part that I remember one day was like, well, because I am loud, because people were saying, myself was saying, I was
Yeah,
relating to him, you're loud, oh
yeah,
yes, you're always loud, you take it for granted, and even though you say it without the meaning, it sticks. So
yeah,
that's the thing. Labels will stick on us, and we will relate or speak of ourselves within these labels. And I remember hearing him once saying, well, that's because I'm loud. And I was like, no, 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 no. This cannot be. You can be loud, but you're not just loud. So let's make this difference. You can be loud when the time is appropriate, when the situation is okay to be loud, but you're not loud. You can be loud. And we
Oh yeah,
really
you have options. You have options. You don't have to be just this one thing. You
no,
can
you can.
be, yeah,
Yeah.
there's like, yeah,
So I
choices.
began to peel them off like that, because
Yeah.
I was hearing him. By the time I learned about all of this, um, I was hearing him speaking of himself like that. You know, like if he didn't do something at school, oh, that's because I'm loud. You see, that's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
break
And
that we.
another big one, the sort of negative one as well, is like when you say, I'm bad at this, I'm bad at that, I'm
Yeah,
bad at maths, I'm naughty, like younger children, I'm naughty,
yep,
or older children, I'm bad at doing maths, I can't do it because I'm bad at it, or I'm bad at school.
yeah.
That's a big one, isn't it? Because sometimes that comes from somewhere else, sometimes that might come from them, but then it just sticks. And then that sets you in a direction where, yeah, you feel
You
negative,
stop trying.
self-esteem goes down.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
you
stop
stop
trying.
trying. So
Yeah, you
it
can't
was.
you feel you can't be more than that, can you? You can't remove it yourself without some help.
Yeah. So that was a
That's
very, it was, I tell you, it was a breakthrough, in many, many ways for my own self as a person, and then as a mother, and then how I discovered my child through peeling off the labels. And as I said, we began to learn to differentiate. We used to have this game when I would catch myself saying things like, "Oh, stop being loud." He will tell me, maybe you can say that differently, or how can you
yeah.
say that differently. We used to have this game until we got really good at it. And my daughter, it was so interesting to see the difference, because I didn't know this with my eldest, but with my daughter I did. So I've gone about this very differently. And the many times that my daughter has come home and said, for example, this happened on the playground. One of the teachers called her, "You are very good. You're always very, very good. You're such a good girl." She came and told me this, and my stomach was like, "Oh my God, I need to speak to this person." But I kept quiet and calm. And then at the end, she said, "But I know I'm not just that, I'm more than that." And this person, this teacher, just doesn't know that, and that's okay. And it was just really amazing, because she has the awareness and the understanding of that, and she doesn't have to take that on it. She can hear it, but she is aware that that's not who she is. That's not. She can be good, like she said. I can be good when I want to pay attention as opposed to play, but I'm not
But
just
more
good.
than that. Yeah,
Yes. And
more.
that was
Yeah,
really powerful, really powerful. And the difference between what I did with my eldest to how I did it with my second child, it's been quite a profound realization for me. And that is
yeah,
why I advocate for this. We take it for granted. And when I speak to other parents, they're like, no. It's sort of almost like part of the language.
yeah,
But it shouldn't be. It
yeah.
really
Now you
shouldn't
just
be.
make me think I've got a parents' evening tomorrow. I'm just waiting for some of this to come up. Yeah, I was gonna say as well, I just had like a thought while you're talking about that is I think some of the reasons that parents use these labels, apart from that maybe they've got them, like they've kept these labels themselves, and so they pass them on accidentally, basically,
Yeah.
is some of it is sort of like, I guess, like our own sort of insecurities as adults. So, I see sometimes on sort of parenting forums, people saying that like I was out in a restaurant and someone complained about my child being too loud and things. And sometimes it is maybe the child is being loud, but also sometimes it is that other person who is just like unable to deal with something. So then they will just sort of complain and they will just put this label on someone,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it might be unfair, or they're missing something else positive that they're doing, and they're just applying what they think is a sort of negative label to try and change them,
Yeah.
perhaps.
Yeah, and that's a good point. And there is something else that parents have asked me along this. So, how do we do this? Because let's face it, a lot of our family, this will be seen a lot within the family, immediate family, and a lot of the immediate family have way of seeing things and doing things. So it will be much harder for them to understand this and to change it. And then you
Yeah.
might have to send them to a course, and it doesn't work like that. So
Yeah.
it would be great if you did, if they all did, because at the end of the day, the more I see this, the more I work every day, the more I work and I come across a human being, I really feel like the parenting um part of life, it's really neglected. We're just doing this without any indications.
Read
uh
guidebook, yeah,
yes,
real
but the
guide.
point of this, the point I'm trying to make is that one of the things, because I used to think, how am I going to change the world so that my child doesn't get labeled, right? That's a huge expectation, and that can actually put deflate the purpose of all of it. So what I say to everybody, and I practice this, when somebody comes along and labels my child, interject just gently. You don't have to go, oh, you shouldn't label. You don't have to lecture. You don't have to do that. You simply say, yes, she can be loud. Or like, I have this, my daughter has gets a lot of attention because she's very beautiful. People say she's very beautiful. She will always get this comment, oh, you're very beautiful, you're very beautiful. And I feel for her because it's kind of hard. She she says, I'm not just beautiful, she's kind,
Yeah,
she's.
people might not look beyond it, you mean? Yeah?
Yes, absolutely, because beautiful becomes, hearing beautiful on and on and on and on becomes empty.
Yeah.
So we've talked about this a lot because she gets it quite often, and so some of the things that I do is, like, when I hear it, or if I'm next to her, I said, um, I encourage that she's not just beautiful, she's also helpful, she's
Yeah.
also fine, but you can just add these things, because at the end of the day, we have to educate each other, and it doesn't have to be through lectures or telling off, but just like, yeah, oh, Sienna is so beautiful, for example. I hear something like that, and I'll immediately go, Sienna is also kind, gentle, and then the attention gets off the she's very beautiful only, because otherwise he gets, oh yes, and you make it big and you make it loud and you make it, as I said, the expectations grow, and it's not constructive for the child's self-esteem.
Yeah, yeah, and sometimes with some of these as well, I think I remember you saying is you can sort of add something onto it where it's sort of, I don't know, you're very good when you do this. Like when you do, like when you manage to do, well, not when you manage to do this, but no, sort of taking away the expectation. So
Yeah.
turning it into praise.
Yes.
So
Describe,
yeah,
descriptive praise, like we talked before. So describe
yeah,
what
yeah. So sort of she's very you're very beautiful when you, I don't know. That's probably a bad
wearing.
example.
So wearing the dress that you're wearing, or the color that you're wearing, yes, brings up your
Yeah,
eye. Things like
yeah,
that. So
yeah,
you can always add, and that kind of conversation doesn't create um, conflicts with the person that is communicating. That actually everybody gets to learn. And I practice this a lot, and people leave like, like, it's not offensive, it is not
yeah,
lecturing. You just offer a little bit more. It's almost like, I feel like you open the door a little bit more, as opposed to.
yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, I was gonna say that's the tricky thing is if someone's saying something and you don't agree with it, you quite often hear people then, especially
If
to
it's
with like
negative,
parenting advice, someone argues against them, and we
yeah,
don't want that, do we? We want
no,
to
no.
just show a different way of thinking and
So,
a
for
more positive.
example, in the case of, oh, she's very beautiful, yes, she's also helpful, she's also kind, and she enjoys jumping, skipping. You add that.
Yeah,
That's one sort of example of labeling. If it's a negative label, when you hear like, oh, she's been rude, she's been rude, we will
yeah,
describe it. So I will interject and say, yes, she can be rude. She's probably very upset for her to be rude right now. So you see, it is, you change it, and that does not create conflict, because you're not saying, no, she's not rude. we're
yeah,
not we're not turning into a defensive sort of a receiver or listener. We're just there to say, yeah, I can see why that's rude. She can be rude, especially if she's really upset, or she must be very upset for her to be rude. So
Yeah,
you
yeah, that's a good
change
one.
it.
So, like, yeah, pointing out that there's maybe some reason or some feeling behind it, even though it might not be the expectation.
Yeah, but
So,
it
yeah,
changes. The beautiful thing about that, even if it, even we don't need to get to where or what, but the beautiful thing that you create right there and then is that the child stops from, if focus, if you take the focus of the child will stop focusing on being loud or annoyed or rude, and the
yeah,
person who's highlighting the behavior, oh yeah, if there is an understanding and what I call an unseen understanding, which will bring people closer, as
yeah,
opposed to, no, she's not loud or she's not rude, or feeling this overwhelming feeling of being judged, um, um, maltreated, maybe, I don't know, there's many things that we can feel at the same time. But I encourage people, and I do practice this, if that's the case, if it's a positive, a too positive label, oh, she's beautiful, she's handsome, he's handsome, he's um I don't know, he's got beautiful eyes, and that's the focus is all about that, I will
yeah,
go, yes, when he's wearing a blue shirt, his eyes
yeah.
will show up, yeah.
Yeah,
And
especially if it's like with empty, so there's no explanation for it. It's just this
yes,
empty
yeah,
label as well, isn't it?
you need substance around it. And then if it's a negative label, for example, in the restaurant and your child is crying, and the
Yeah,
person next to you is like, la 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 loud child. We hear it like that. I've
yeah,
been there. They say, yeah, look, he can be loud. Oh, yes, he can be annoying because he's crying. I understand that, but something must be going on for my child to be crying this loud. And then
yeah,
it's like
yeah, and it gives that other person as well a chance to think about their sort of behavior and why they're labeling as well, doesn't it? If they're open to it, if they're
yeah.
open to it.
Um,
So,
as I said, if we just did, if all of us did a little bit of this, because at the moment we do this, just by doing that, we're acknowledging everybody's emotions, isn't it? Without
yeah,
having to say, oh, I'm sorry that you are feeling annoyed because my child is being loud. This is too overwhelming.
yeah,
I don't enjoy hearing this. It's too much of a lecture. It's too much of sometimes undermining, depending on where the person is. But we don't need to be there to
yeah,
fix everybody, because
yeah,
everybody's entitled to their feelings, right? But if
yeah,
we are like, yes, my child can be loud, or I can see why it's the noise is too loud, especially in restaurants where everything is too loud and close, but I
yeah,
can understand that. Then the person who's complaining won't feel judged or um, told off or
yeah,
ignored, because as I said, there's many feelings that we can experience, but we don't need to get into those details. We can simply make it neutral.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. And I think as well, this is something that you've pointed out before. One thing that is so important about this is that if we can do this with our children, then they're not going to grow up and have, well, they're at least going to be aware if they maybe label themselves or someone else labels them. Because
Yeah,
sometimes it's labeling ourselves as well, isn't it? If it's like a
yeah,
learnt behavior, like, oh, I look bad.
yeah.
It's a
I'm
common one of
depressed.
things. And
Yes,
yeah, yeah,
I'm depressed. Yeah, yeah. Self
yeah,
fulfilling.
yeah,
That's my worry, that these labels are self fulfilling prophecies, and because they stick, because they stay
yeah,
with you, and then we just work so hard to make them. It's like a banner, but a flag that you go through. I'm a rebel. I'm this, and it's so exhausting. Really.
yeah. Or you're trying to sort of be modest or something, so you're going to
Mhm.
say like, yes, I am ugly, or I look really bad, or but then even these things, even and yeah, it might be to sort of get some positive praise or something, but just the negativity of it is does affect you and things, and it does, yeah, it really weighs on you. Whereas if you don't ever sort of get into that labeling and things, or
Mm.
it's very hard not to at all. But yeah, it's if you can show your child how to have that self-esteem when they're young and how to get rid of the things that go against that,
Yeah.
it's so big because I think there was an image you showed us once in the alumni group from people who did the course. think when I did it or afterwards, one of your other cohorts, but picture of a woman with all these labels on her, all these different things, and some of them were positive, sort of good girl and things like I'm really good or something. And I remember thinking, well, that's positive, that's good, that's a good thing. But then actually, the more I sort of read about people that were sort of, I don't know, were having a hard time in their lives, I'd read things online and people would keep going back to, I was trying to meet this expectation or I was failing at doing like living up to this thing. You see it in films too, don't you, where the sort of, I don't know, like someone is trying to do what they thought that like their parent expected of them, or I don't know, please someone, and they fall short of it and they just feel like they're not worthy of anything.
Yep.
Whereas
Yep.
it's all come from this external like labeling of what they need to be and what they need to do
Yep.
rather than what they actually want. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Uh,
so I didn't get it first, that whole sort of positive labels, like how being good, for me sort of saying like being good and things, and like if you carry it around as an adult, how it can affect you still. And I thought, well, that's positive, but actually it's this thing that you're having to live up to, isn't it?
yeah. And if this good girl, it's it's a very interesting. We had so many revelations when we work on the through the course, that being good, as a parent and as a wife, for example, as a friend, partner, you have to be good, and you policing everybody but yourself,
Yeah.
because you set your expectations so high. It's not even people don't know this. This is our um what's the word, this is how we've trained ourselves to
Like
become.
internal, yeah?
Yes. And then as parents, how many of us, first, the children, the babies come first, and it's very honorable and it's very good. But you're not good, no one is good if you're not eating well, if you're not sleeping well, if you're not like looking after yourself. Because your child can be well, but if you cannot be well, then what after that?
Yeah.
But that
Yeah.
stems from the fact that we're meant to be good girls, good wives, good mums, everything good and perfect. And it's not attainable, it's not sustainable as well.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, because even if you are doing all the things, you're going to be the only one who's noticing that you are doing all the things, or you just can't keep it up, and then you're going to feel resentful, your needs are
Yeah,
not met, you're tired, you're miserable, you complain then, and then you feel like, oh, I'm getting even further away than what I'm meant to be.
yeah.
And then
That I
yeah,
used
then
to
you
give
just
that.
get into
I
this
used to
horrible
be that.
cycle of I can't make people happy. But you need to make yourself happy too, don't you? And
That's
things. So
right. Absolutely. And more so as a parent, because, it took me a long time. I remember my son must be 1 year old, and I met somebody, a very brave woman, who said to me, no, first it's me, then me, then me. And I was like, oh, that's so selfish. I was so judgmental of this
yeah.
view. I was so judgmental of this way of life, because of my culture, but because of where I come from. First is the children. You are a mat, a mop, and a doormat. Your needs are not important. This is how I learned the motherhood sort of thing. And I remember my son must have been 1. I did not listen to this advice, but she was very straight and very firm about it. She came first, and then first, and then first. And it took me a long time to understand that actually that is a really good point. Because if you're not well, your children won't. And you might be doing everything for your children, but if you're feeling resentful, just like you said, it defeats the purpose, because you're going to be feeling resentful towards your child. And whoever says this is not true, trust me. Trust me. I've done it all. and it's much harder to develop healthy relationships with our children, because we might think that we have good relationships, but our children will know where are we coming from. So we might try so hard to put up brave face and to do all of it. But if we're not clear, our children will know. And that's
Yeah.
the result. Eventually, the relationships that we have as they become teenagers, young adults, that's the proof. The proof is in the pudding, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yes, let's think about labels. Let's look about how can we make some time for ourselves. It's not the easiest thing, more so when we have trained to believe that it must be our children first. There's a story that it's not a story, it's a thing that did happen. I knew this parent that she was so devoted to her kids, and it was very novel to see this. But she was so devoted to the point that she died because of the amount of stress that she had. And that was a very interesting learning lesson for me to actually witness. And it reminded me that I was like that once, like I was to the, I mean,
Oh, you
I
were
brought
burning out.
myself to the edge, yes, thinking that I was being a good mother. I was being the perfect mother, the ideal mother, whatever you want to call it. I seen this firsthand, um, where the stress, the amount of first the children, first this, first that, and now she's not here.
Mm.
And that's something that it's a hard thing to witness. It's a hard thing to come to consider, but it has to be considered because if we're not considering ourselves and taking care of our own needs, our own lives, and our own health, what is that to our kids?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
So it's about, yeah, being our best as well without these expectations that people put on us, we put on ourselves, we put onto our children as
yeah,
well.
yeah, yeah,
Take it off them, take it off ourselves,
yes.
and just like do what you need to do, basically, that is going to make
And I
you and your children, yeah,
happy and
happy.
healthy. And
Happy.
I'm sorry to interrupt you there.
No,
And I know that I only have two children, and the age gap is what I call reasonable because it feels like I can manage. I don't have under fives more than one, and so I can see that if having one was so difficult, having two I can't even imagine. But I do say, having gone through what I've gone through, having seen what I've seen, is that you genuinely, for parents that have more than one, between close age, you gotta make the time no matter what, whatever it takes, make the time. It's so important, and because we're role modeling this to our children as well.
or
So
make the
it's
time for yourself, you
for
mean?
yourself,
Yeah.
yes, make the time for yourself, nurture yourself. I don't know, read, write, have a bath. And I share this because it was very hard and it does work. I've done it. I've done it. I've done it. We used to live in this little place. Remember, Michelle? And you came and visit us there. And Sienna was little, and I used to roll the mat to
Yeah,
do
very
some
little
yoga.
place. Yeah.
Yeah, to do some yoga, and I taught my child very earlier on. She must have been 6, 8, 7 months. By the time she was 1 year or 9 to 11 months, she was little. I trained her so well just by being gentle and consistent and clear that when I was on the mat, she was not allowed in the mat. So it can be done. Most of us don't do it because it takes consistency and it's repetition, and it's time consuming. But if you do it, it works.
Yeah, and you can feel guilt about it as well, can't you?
Yeah, yeah. And but the benefit of that is that you stop labeling as well.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah. Stop being loud. Stop interrupting me. Oh, you're being naughty. All these things that we do, all this language that we use, and under fives mostly.
That's a
that
good point. That's a good point because actually a lot of that comes from a place of when we're stressed, doesn't it? From
Yeah,
everyone. So
yeah,
yeah,
yes. Ultimately, if you're not eating, if you haven't slept well, if you haven't had enough time for you
for
as
the negative
a
labels come.
parent, yes, as a parent, or for us as parents, something minor will happen and we'll want to nip it off like, oh, stop that, you're being loud, you're being noisy. And it just carries on. But that comes from the place of emptiness, because we are empty.
Yeah,
So there is an incentive for everybody, for all of us, to really go back and remember that, really remember the basis of that. The basis are, or is, to be able to be clear, honest, kind, and direct. Yes, you can be loud when you get exhausted, or when you haven't eaten enough or slept enough. I would like for you to get back on your bed, because I too need some time.
yeah,
Just clear, and it becomes part of your norm, um, when we bring the awareness of that.
yeah,
Yeah. Uh, and one more thing to add. Well, two more things to add, and then see what else you may have, Michelle. So labels can be hurtful. Really, can be hurtful. I do want to highlight this part, because if somebody sees you as selfish, or stubborn, or naughty, or what are the other labels, ugly, fat, all of these labels that we there's many labels. I mean,
yeah.
genuinely, uh genuinely, you lose the person with all of these labels. But if, or when we are relating to people like this is hurtful. This is very, very hurtful. Some of us learn to numb our, like, oh yeah, that's okay, I'm used to that. Yeah, I'm fat, I'm the
Yeah,
it's just, but truly, at the end of the day, when you sit by yourself and you become honest, you'll find that these labels have been very hurtful. So
yeah.
let's be mindful that these labels, not just they're not just detrimental for your self-esteem or for our children's self-esteem. I'm talking about general, because it really works between the parent and the child, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah,
And then, but then also the part in us, in the child, or you as a parent, um the hurt that comes with it. I really think it's important to be aware of this. That just because a child or someone or you have begun to believe that, oh yeah, well, I'm the loud, or I'm the
I'm
noisy,
lazy. Yeah,
yeah, lazy, yeah, clumsy. At the end of the day, when you become honest, you'll see that it is hurtful. So imagine.
yeah,
So that is a nice point to remember. Then the other part that I wanted to highlight is that labels can be good. They
yeah,
definitely can be helpful. They can be helpful in the situation of a child with special needs, for example. It can help find a label that can support the child, or can help the child have the help that the child or the person needs. But after that, you got to take it away. For example, children with autism. So that's a label in itself.
mm,
My issue with that is, okay, yes, we know now that the child has autism, but we don't want to relate to them from this point of view. And I see this a lot. Oh, it's because he's got autism. Oh, it shouldn't be like that. So we have to be
yeah,
very mindful, because they have these, and of course it's detrimental for how they learn, how they understand the world, and so on and so on. But if we start to relate to them like that, we stop them from being the best that they can actually be.
yeah,
I don't know
yeah.
if you disagree with me with that one, but I do think it's important to highlight this part.
Yeah, no, no, that's true. Yeah, I know people when they're disabled, they say, and it's hard for me to notice it because I'm not disabled, but they will point out that that is the label that they get. Everything is seen through the lens of they're disabled.
And
So
it's not,
yeah,
we don't do justice on their behalf, because we just, we treat them differently, we relate to
yeah,
them differently. And sometimes in children, I think quite a challenging things around this is that their behavior gets excused for that, and then parents uh, um, stop from helping them correct their behavior. And it shouldn't be like that, because at the end of the day, the only person that gets to be disadvantaged is the child, not the parent. It might be easier for the parent to excuse the behavior because of autism, because of I don't know, any other special needs that the child might have. But you still, you, by doing that, we give way for them to be excused in their behavior, on their behavior, and they still, we can still relate to them as any other human, with respect, kindness, honesty, directness, and openness.
hmm, yeah, yeah. I don't really have experience of that, so I don't know. But yeah, that does make some sense. That there's yeah, you can't just look at a behavior because of as caused by that. There might be more to it.
Yes, and
And
I
yeah,
worked, now I worked quite a few years with these sort of subjects, and a lot of the things that I've seen, and most parents agree after a while whilst working with them, that it's like, actually no, your child has this, yes, and there are some things that you gotta adjust, of course, but you still need to be clear, honest, and open and direct if you want them to build their self-esteem, because they still need self-esteem. They still,
yeah,
they all need, we all need the same things.
yeah. They
And
still need direction. You can't just
yes,
decide not to
yes, they
do
still
anything
need
in
to
a
fit
certain
in the
area
world.
because it's yeah,
Yeah, and they still need to go out and fit into the world. We all do. So, but if we don't have the skills, if we don't have the awareness and the understanding, then it becomes more challenging, more so when we have special needs behind it.
yeah,
And you might not, it's not about fixing the problem, but it's about um, helping our children with disabilities or special needs or not, to have a neutral place, a neutral understanding where everybody can coexist at the end of the day.
yeah.
Yeah. Any other thoughts that you may have there, Michelle?
Not really, no. I've noticed we've done a long call again.
Yes, yes. So, to, I suppose, to wrap this up is that, to say, label boxes if you must, but not people. Please don't label people, or label the uniforms if you must,
Yeah,
but not your child. And
yeah,
um, and remembering that at the end of the day, when you reflect on this a little bit more, when we all reflect on this a little bit more, sounds like I'm telling you off, Michelle, but I don't mean it like that.
yeah,
It's that labels can be hurtful, even if you say, even if it's as simple as you are messy. That's hurtful
yeah,
in it. Yes, it's
yeah,
it's not. Although it's simple and it doesn't sound too detrimental, it's
yeah,
hurtful.
yeah. Then children pass them on to other children,
Yeah, yeah.
and it just all goes round and round, doesn't it? So
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So,
yeah,
well, hopefully this has been helpful. And as I said, when we find ourselves in situations where other people are labeling our children, let's be confident enough to say, oh, yeah, that looks very pretty on her. Or when her hair is down, she looks beautiful. We add things. When
yeah,
somebody has a negative label on our children, for example, when we go to our teachers' conferences that we have, and they go, oh, she's very loud, or she's not good at listening. And we can actually add, even there, we can add this. I can see what you mean when you say that my child struggles to listen, in because they won't be like that in every lesson. Maybe it's
yeah,
maybe it's English, maybe it's that. So if you just help the teacher differentiate that, it becomes so much easier.
Yeah, and adding the positives of
Yeah,
what if they do fit into that category a bit, why that's a good thing as well.
yeah,
So
yeah,
if you actually believe that that is coming from the child rather than just a label that someone else is putting onto
yeah,
them, then how that is actually a good thing too. So
yeah.
yeah,
Absolutely, and that's more helpful for everybody. We
yeah,
are, we want to educate one another.
yeah,
Because we're not meant to be perfect, and sometimes we're gonna get it wrong. And when I get it wrong, my children will go, "Ah, yeah," or
yeah.
or
But then the good sign is when you see your child becoming more confident and more happy, and you feel that way too, and then you think, actually, this is
what's it?
different, isn't it? This must be right because this is working for both of us. So
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree, and it's so much helpful and more constructive and positive to building healthy relationships with your children.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Yeah, this subject needs lots of thinking about, doesn't it? I know I always think about this, and the more I think about it, the more
the more
I
you do it,
yeah, the deeper I go into it, and then the more I can use it. So
yeah.
yeah,
Maybe we can do a second part to this, but I think this is a foundation that if we get this done, or if we get to understand this simple part of it, because it really is simple. Once you understand something, then it's less likely for you to do it that way. So
yeah,
understand the strategy to it, and
yeah,
just by being again honest, kind, direct, and describing what is it that you want to see, as opposed to just label it.
yeah,
All right.
yeah. It's probably worth mentioning that with the parent-to-parent course, this is one of the subjects, isn't it, of many?
Yeah, of many of the many, we have 10 full strategies that we discussed throughout the course, and this is like week 3 or 4, and it's so yeah, it's so profound. We have had many realizations every time we do this part. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Right.
thank you, Vera.
Thank
That
you.
was
This is amazing. So we see you and everybody. Hopefully, somebody will tune in and have
fun.
questions perhaps next week on Monday.
Yeah,
We are back to
yeah,
Mondays, right? Oh,
yeah. Okay. All right.
feeling
Bye.
feeling better.
A little bit. Yeah, should be soon. Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.